This evening. Appreciate those who have joined us here in the room and maybe some of those who are online. John, if you would monitor that, we would appreciate it. But thank you for your interest in what's going on in the city. Thank you, council, for your commitment of being here this evening. We'll start our meeting by asking Council Member Severing if he'd like to give an invocation or a thought or both, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm going to offer a prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we appreciate the opportunity to live in this great country. We're grateful to live in the city that we live in with so many good people. And collectively, we exercise our faith and prayers for them. May our city be a place of safety and peace for those who live here and those who visit. Give thanks for the opportunity to serve the citizens. We pray that decisions tonight rendered would be of great benefit to everyone, that there might be wisdom and also frugality as we ponder the needs for the city. We give thanks for our many blessings, and we pray for this tonight in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council Member Severing, for that. We appreciate it. Based upon tonight's agenda, Council, do you have any potential conflicts of interest you'd like to discuss? I see none, so we'll assume there are none. And we'll move on to item 2 on our agenda. This is to approve the May 13th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. And I must say, this is a drastic change when I first came here. I mean, it's basically 2 weeks. Here we are. So thank you, Recorder, for your good work.
You're welcome.
And AI.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you,
to
too.
ChatGPT.
The point is, we have our minutes on a very timely basis. And thank you, council, for those who look at the minutes and submit changes to Ryan. I believe you've had that chance. Is that correct? You've all seen the minutes? Okay, I'll assume there's no other changes this evening. But if there are, we can address those during the discussion period. I'd be looking for a motion then to approve the May 13th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve the May 13th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes.
We have a motion to approve those minutes by Councilmember Watson. Second. Councilmember Pulver has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you. We'll now move on to our active agenda, which is item number 3, in regards to public comments. So anyone here who would like to make a public comment, we'd ask you to kind of, I guess, come closer to you, John.
Yeah, stand here next to JD, one of the two.
You can select who you like best and just stand by one of them so that those who are online can hear. Do we have any public comments this evening? Mr. Bartholomew.
You can call me Brian.
I prefer Mr. Bartholomew.
I prefer Brian.
Out of respect.
I appreciate that, but I'm
Out of
still
respect.
Brian. So I'm here with the budget committee, but I also wanted to, last year I got involved. You guys told me to get involved with the budget committee. It's been really good for me in a number of reasons. Understanding the finances better. It's been good for me and Phil to get to know each other a little better. We're better friends now than we were going in. And it's been really kind of interesting for me getting to know and understand the budget. The one thing I do want to say as we've gone through this is last fall when I got up to the council and I said, you guys doing a 10% tax increase this year. And I said, get it down to 2 or 3%. This is just big government growth. That's all it is. And you all proceeded to move forward and say how hard it was to make the decision to increase the tax rate by 10%, and then you all approved it. And then afterwards, I talked to a number of you, and Blake, I'm going to call you Blake because I consider you my friend. You went on to say that the 10% raise was gonna be for potholes. And it was gonna be used to fill roads and yada, yada, yada. So I started coming to the budget committee and I asked John right off the bat, I said, okay, so we did a 10% raise in the budget, in the tax rate. Now when John presented it, he wanted to hire somebody. And then Blake, you told me that it was gonna be to fill potholes. And so I asked John, I said, who did you hire and how many potholes have been filled? And he gave me kind of a blank look on his face and was like, I don't really remember that conversation, but that's what got me here. Now, as I went to the different meetings, the thing that's kept me up at night the most is one meeting, I was talking to Mayor and he said, we're about $5 to $10 million behind on our roads. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? We're that far behind on our road maintenance. So that week I went to lunch with Phil and he says, we're not $5 to $10 million behind. We're like $20 million behind. And I'm like, what's going on? My head's getting blown here. The next meeting we had one of the road guys, I don't remember who it was. And he said, no, it's not 20 million. It's like $40 million behind. And now that we're being thrown around between 50 and $100 million we're behind on roads. Okay. And so my point is, as a citizen, apart from being involved with the budget committee, is how are we even considering things like amphitheaters and pools and that kind of stuff if we're between $5 and $100 million behind on our road maintenance? Okay, I think, and as I've talked to people, I've had a number of friends who said, you know, we need to go after a rec center here in North Ogden. It'd be a great addition. And I tell them, I absolutely agree, because I want a soccer stadium. I'm a soccer guy. So we've got an amphitheater, we got a pool, let's get a rec center, and let's get Brian his soccer stadium, because that's the way we roll around here. We get all the toys we want. And who cares about the $50 to $100 million that we're behind on our roads? Okay. The point is, if we're not taking care of the needs of the city, which is roads are a need, why are we even looking at some of these other sillinesses? Okay. I've squawked at the councils for 10 to 15 years about the pool, getting it to break even. And to my understanding, it's still not breaking even. The budget numbers from last year, so I believe the $94,000 deficit. And that's not even the cost of the pool. If you throw in, now Berube and I argued about the $30,000 versus the $90,000, but the numbers show on paper it was $90,000 for each of numbers. That doesn't include the depreciation to offset the cost of the pool we replace in a few years. Again, the point is, if we've got a pool losing between $100,000 and $500,000 a year, and we're way behind on our roads, which is the need, we've got our priorities backwards. Okay. So now back to the budget committee. We discussed in the budget committee about doing a fee or a tax increase. And I was for a fee, call it a fee specific to roads, because that's what, in my opinion, needs to be done. And we discussed it, and they said, well, go out and ask people. So I went out and asked a lot of folks. I said, you know, what's your take? I explained to them the situation. What's your take on a fee or a tax increase? Every one of them said, do a fee specific to roads. They didn't like it. But when I tell them we're between, you know, at that time it was, you know, $20 and $40 million behind the roads, everyone said, do a fee specific to the road. Okay. So my point as a citizen is we need to address the needs of the city, and a pool and an amphitheater and my soccer stadium and my friend's rec center are not needs of the city. Okay. So, and based on my research, talking to people directly, it's do a fee. Now, Phil's going to report more later on what we talked about, but I want to take the chance just to say, as a citizen, thank you for the invitation to get involved with the budget committee. Like, I still want my question answered. Who was hired and how many potholes were filled? Because the answer I've gotten so far is 0. The person was hired, but they didn't fill potholes. So I feel like I had a little bait and switch there. But regardless, the roads have to be addressed, and you guys get to decide how it goes. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Can I make a comment? Am I permitted
Plus,
to?
if we have any other public
Okay.
comments, can we do that? And then maybe you can answer all the questions. All right, John, anyone else online?
No one online.
Anyone else here who'd like to make a comment? You just state your name, and if you're a resident of North Ogden,
Yes, my name is Alan Robinson, and I am a citizen and resident of North Ogden. I'll sit here if it's all right.
and sir, the public comments were limited to 5 minutes.
I'll try.
We can invite you up, as representing the discussion
You that item. The next item is the
on number
HOA.
4.
Oh, so I don't need to go now.
No,
Oh, thank you.
but you can comment on the other stuff.
No, the
You-
timing
you
was bad,
both-
after-
you
secured your seat.
but after his speech, I didn't want to go anyway.
So, John, anyone online?
No, there's no one watching.
Mr. Burns?
I had too much time to think about it. Kevin Burns from North Ogden. I see we're having a discussion again tonight about the road, the transportation utility fee. And, after Brian's passionate speech, I still wanted to stress that
You may want to sit down just to think of the camera.
He doesn't have to. I want to break the camera, you're too tall.
didn't get a camera first.
Um, call it a fee, call it a tax, it's still a tax. If I can't opt out of it, it's a tax. It actually matters to me, and I know Brian has talked to people, and I am people. I wasn't talked to, but, it's, as a North Ogden resident, to me, what it's called matters. As the way you deal with it, so it's a tax. That's the way I feel about it. I just wanted to reiterate that. I thought the decision had been made. I seem to remember a meeting where there was a discussion and a decision made about going with the property tax direction rather than the transportation utility fee. So I was surprised that it came back, sort of, but then Sandy reminded me that we really like to have 5 or 6 discussions about a single item before a final decision is made. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else this evening? Not seeing any hands raised online. So we'll move on to item number 4. Oh, thanks for the reminder, Blake. Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mayor. So Brian,
Yes,
I would like to address the things you mentioned.
please.
First off, if I said potholes, and I probably did, but it wasn't meant in just potholes, it was road condition. Okay. Second, I think based on our conversation with, my conversation with other council members, when, Dave mentioned that we were looking at 90 to $100 million, that came as a total surprise. We've never, in my mind, unless one of the councilmen or the mayor can remind me, we have never had a conversation looking at, roads having that kind of neglect and repair costs. So that was as much a surprise to us as it was to the citizens. Third thing is, not citizens, I mean, I guess city council, but am I everybody that was kind of surprised to everybody?
We didn't hear that number until the consultant finished their
Yeah.
review. So everyone,
Everybody was
yeah.
taken,
The last number we had from a study was 10 million.
yeah, like 10 to 20, yeah.
That's until this new study came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the roads deteriorated and the costs went up, but the last study we had was 2015-ish or 7,
2015 is.
and that was the number then. So,
so that came as a surprise to everybody. So it wasn't like in the past 8 years that I've been on the council that we've been neglecting it. We've been trying our best to be able to make up for the cost of the amphitheater. Has to be incremental. We feel like it's incremental, but that came as a surprise to staff and city council. No neglect. No neglect.
thank you, Councilmember Severing. We'll now move on to item number 4. I think we'll start with hearing from Eric Casperson, who is our city engineer, and then we have representatives from Legacy North Homeowners Association. And we'll let them address the issue after we hear from Eric.
Great. I'm glad I didn't sit down here earlier. Anyway, okay, so thank you, council. I appreciate it. The opportunity to come and have a discussion with all of you. It's been proposed for North Ogden City to take ownership of the Legacy North HOA, the roadways within that HOA. So kind of give some a little bit of backstory. The HOA was initially constructed with phase one in 1996, and it was completed in 4 phases, with the last phase being approximately 2015, which was right directly behind the senior center, just south of the senior center. So this HOA, as you can see on the map, is located between 2550 North and 2300 North. It involves the roadway 525 East down to Legacy Drive, and then in the 4 cul-de-sacs that are also included in this. There are 80 properties within this HOA. The right-of-way within this HOA is 38 feet with an average asphalt width of 28 feet. So we met with Alan Robinson, the president of the HOA, and his vice president also. I believe it was last week before. And we asked about what they had done in the past and in any records. And the records that we had been given at the time of our meeting was around 48,000 approximately that they had spent on the roads with Silco and crack sealing. This road was not included in our roadway study that we did, and so it was not included with in that 100 million because it was not a city road. If you use the remaining service life of the study that was from 0 to 20, this would range between a 0 and 4. So we could, due to the alligator cracking and the condition of the asphalt and the age of the asphalt as well. So this would be recommended for a rebuild, which would not include the Legacy Drive Hammerhead or the Legacy Drive from the Hammerhead south to 525 East. That would be recommended to be a chip seal. I've included within the packet, I've included a cost estimate based on the numbers that we had received from the study for the rebuild and the approximate areas in both square footage and square yards. And then the cost for each one of those sections of roadway. The areas of the cul-de-sacs.
Can we get the cost
Oh.
up on the screen, please,
Sorry.
if that's possible?
Yeah, let me grab the staff report.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Thank
You're
you.
good. Yep. Makes sense.
Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one.
There we go. Okay, so the 4 sections, 2500 North, 2450 North, 2400 and 2350 North are the cul-de-sacs. And those were measured using Google Earth area. And so there is some slight, could be some error in that. So those are approximate numbers. And then the Hammerhead, Legacy Drive, and then 525 were measured in the field. With the 80 residents there, that's a cost per house or per property of approximately $12,000 each one. So with a total cost of $954,000 to do that project. So the question to the council tonight, they requested that the roadways be turned over, and I think Alan, you have some comments I think to make as well.
Correct.
But that's the question that we're presenting to the council tonight. So.
Thank you. I have a presentation here. Make some copies. That would be great. Well, you want or they got them? Oh, you got me one? Yeah.
There's one here.
I have enough or okay?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, thank you. Well, I appreciate, first of all, being invited here to the council, and appreciate Eric and his comments and his research that he's done. And of course, we met with them before. So the whole problem is we really have a serious problem that is those citizens that we have in the North Legacy Association. Because, the cost of doing roads has evidently changed dramatically from the time that they first thought that they were going to repair them some years ago. So what I've done here, just quickly recap, I've got, I guess, 5 minutes, somebody says, so. What it is the roads here, I was told earlier with the meeting with Eric that it was gonna cost $1,033,000, so my figure was 13,605 for each one of the homes there. So the numbers are close, but a little bit off. There are 76 homes that are on these roads. There are 4 homes that we have in our association that are on a city street. That's the 2550. So I'll work with 76. We're paying approximately $3,000 per year for property taxes. That's the only number I have. So if I take that and I look at the first road, the main one is the 525, running between 2550 north and 300 north. We're looking at about basically $5,040,000 between the 30 years of the original road to the 10 years of the newer one. And so I was looking at what it really means. It's about 600,000 for the 10-year-old. So we are looking at 5,640,000. The city indicated to me that, of course, you don't get that money except for 10% for taxes. Okay, so I've gone with that number. That would give us 564,000 that has been paid to the city. And the city has not had to spend any money on roads or on sidewalks or on light posts because we own them. It's understandable. Since the roads are narrower to accommodate more homes per 1,000 feet of road, the reason they did that is so that they could get more homes in, get more taxpayers. And basically, we have more taxpayers probably than any other North Ogden city dwelling, single dwelling houses, I think, per 1,000 feet. The city owns the utilities under the roads, and that's something we need to understand. Therefore, any repairs to these utilities would require the city to dig down to the source of the repairs and then to repair the road over the repair area, so they'd have to pave it. Since the roads are narrower than normal street in North Ogden, the repairs to the road would cost less by 20% because of the square footage, in other words, being narrower roads. The main road, 525 East, is a thoroughfare between 2550 and 2300, so we're not the only ones that use the road. Unfortunately, it's used by other equipment, including the city. So there are other people or other sources of travel on that road. They don't do the same, obviously, on the legacy part because that's a dead end. Putting up a fence on each end makes no sense. In other words, to the city or to ourselves. The HOA will do all the snow removal, so we need to know that we're willing to pay for that, so the city doesn't even have to worry about snow removal. Next page. There are only 2,110 feet of street. In other words, that's all of it. And then there are 4 small cul-de-sacs. Here's some suggestions. By the way, I'm begging. I'm not sitting here trying to threaten or anything, because I can't do that. This first option is the city takes ownership of the roads in the HOA, and the HOA will provide the city with the only reserve it has right now. We'll give you $100,000. Second one, the HOA will spend $35,000 to seal and slurry all the roads on the HOA this year, providing several more years of life of the road, and then the city will take ownership. Proposal number 3, the city will take ownership of the main road, 525 East, going from 2550 north to 2300 north. The HOA will continue to own and maintain the legacy road and the 4 cul-de-sacs. Proposition number 4, with any of the 3 previous options, the HOA will continue to provide snow removal. Option number 5, the HOA will continue to own the roads, and the city will give the HOA $300,000 towards resurfacing costs, and each year provide $23,000 a year, which would approximate the taxes paid to the city. Option number 6, which makes no sense to me, the city does nothing, the HOA does nothing, and basically the road deteriorates, and then the utilities underneath become a problem, and the city coming out to repair the utilities would obviously have to repair the road wherever they have to do the utilities. So I don't know whether that eventually repaves everything or not, but anyway, that's my presentation. We obviously are in trouble. We have a lot of people that live there that are on fixed income and don't have the funds to be able to come up with the 11,900 or my figure of 12 or 13,000. And so we're in a bit of a problem. So those are some of my suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. John, just a couple of questions for you.
Mhm.
It seems like one time you said that private citizens can't plow public roads.
That's in our code. It says that, snow removal is supposed to be handled by the city. If the city did take this over and we wanted snow removal to continue with the HOA, we could create a carve out for it, but that is our current standard, yeah.
And then, sir, I was just wondering on the 564,000, you're assuming that all could have gone to repair roads, nothing for public safety, parks, anything of that nature?
Now, I realize it goes everywhere. I'm just talking about the total amount. We'd love to
Okay,
say, yeah, it went to roads, but we understand.
so thank you. Council, what questions do you have for Alan? Do you have any questions? Councilmember Dalpas?
Sure, I think this has been mentioned maybe in one of the last meetings, but, the possibility of creating a gate has been explored, has not been explored. So it is truly a private street that no other people can use. Is there a history on that?
I don't know. I'm still fairly new. But I don't see any reason to have gates on each end because it's a nuisance to us to have to gate, well, of course, it depends on the money you spend. If you have the operating kind that you have some kind of an electronic, yeah, it's easy to get in and out. If you can't afford that, you put a padlock on, everybody gets out and uses the key or whatever. And if the city ever has to come in with an ambulance or come in with a fire truck or whatever, it would be a problem, I believe. So we really have no desire to do that. It's just, if it stays that way and we don't want anyone to be on it, yeah, that's one way of stopping them. We could stop them all. But I don't think we have any desire to do that.
But at this point, it's really a moot point because the damage has been done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
future resolution. Yeah.
Councilmember Severing, did you have a comment?
I did, Mr. Robinson. So you say on point number one, HOA will provide the city with the only reserve it presently has of 100,000.
Mhm.
So your HOA currently only has $100,000 in it?
That, just for that, we have
Just
an
for
annual
that.
budget for all our other costs. But this one's for roads, and for other major items. But right now it's roads. That's all we have right now, yes.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Mr. Robbins? John?
I have a question for Eric. Eric, any idea what this might have cost to do 5 years ago? Would it have
Um,
been half as expensive, 33%?
yeah, there have been quite the increase in costs, in materials and asphalt labor. And so, yeah, I would probably venture probably about a 40%, I would say.
The increase?
So,
So it would have been 600,000
correct,
instead of 900 or a million.
correct.
Okay.
How many
Yeah.
HOAs do we have in the city? Does anyone know that?
I don't know off the top of my head, a lot.
I guess how many
Five
HOAs do we
people.
have that owns the roads? That's the question.
Well, I know.
Well, that,
Every HOA owns their own roads.
No, Sunbrook, how many?
Lakeview.
I don't think
Lakeview
so.
I don't think so. The one below us south doesn't.
Yeah, so it is a question, I think.
I want to say 3 or 4.
But most of the ones that don't own their roads put in the road to the
Big
correct
enough.
standards.
Yeah.
To city standards.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Eric, as the city engineer, what problems do you see with the city taking the roads over?
With this road, it's too narrow, right, to be a standard road. On-street parking would be a challenge. So if there were any on-street parking, there would be a problem with vehicles passing one another, especially if the vehicles were straight across the street from each other. Emergency vehicles require a 20-foot clear space, so which only gives 4 feet on each side on a 28-foot asphalt road. So that would be a challenge there. The alligator cracking possibly could present some subgrade issues that we've known some water issues to the north of here in the senior center parking lot. It was some pretty big challenges. So, when we open up the road, we may find a few items that we didn't know about. So that, and I think for this cost, I think is very conservative. And so I believe we could do, it would cost this much and possibly less. So, but again, this is an estimate. Now if we got actual numbers from an actual contractor, it may vary from this
Up or
number.
down is you're pretty good at those things,
Well, it may go down, but not by much.
but it could go up.
It could go up too.
We've asked some asphalt companies to look at it, and the number's less than we're talking about. We're hitting around 400,000 to 500,000. But again, the thing we don't know, which Eric's pointing out, is we don't know what's underneath.
Mhm.
That would be resurfacing everything.
So if I understand this right, just wanna make sure. This is in the 0 to 4, so something has to be done, else we're in a replace versus a repair situation.
Correct. Well, we're in a rebuild. We're in a pull-up
This is a
rebuild.
rebuild.
Mhm. It's a
So this would
rebuild.
have to be done relatively soon, which would be on top of the ones identified by Public Works that need to be done now in the city in the 0 to 4 category.
Correct.
If I heard you right, this is the on top of that.
Correct.
Mr. Fuller?
So what, I'm thinking of all these things of combining and just kind of twisting things around, but anyway, if the main issue in my mind is the fact that most of the citizens use 525 East. And, if there's some kind of payback or, cause we're taking on something that, obviously things costs have gone crazy, but, if there's a way to, if we take just 525 East and then the HOA gives back some money every year, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, how that, because obviously this isn't in the budget, this is something that would be taken from the meat, so to speak, as opposed to something we can plan for. Because as we have read before, the longer you wait, the longer it deteriorates into pebbles. So, I don't know. I mean, is that even an option just to pick one and talk about payback, or what's?
Well, we're here to negotiate, that's for
Okay.
sure. So, but like I say, if you'll take over 525, that's the main road, and that's, I mean, we can keep Legacy, we can keep the cul-de-sacs, and I think we can take care of paving everything else. It's just the 525 is the big one, and I don't think we have the ability to do that.
Is there,
Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, keep going.
Well, I just was gonna say, is there a way to get a more definitive bid on that, just that one section, and just see if,
It's the last
where we at?
row, right?
Yeah. 525 East.
Yeah, so I've estimated it at 423,
And that's pretty-
for that.
Right, I know, but is there a way to actually, what he was talking about, bids to,
Mhm.
I don't know, just to get
Yeah.
a more set in stone thing, and then how we pay back thing, I don't know.
I'm curious too, if there's a way that we could help with one line item, but not take ownership of the road. Is that a possibility?
So from past experience, it has been a challenge. So,
That would probably fall in the range of the city becoming a lending institution.
Yeah.
We probably can't do that. But I mean, when cities typically look at this, they'll go both ways. And what I mean is some cities just say, sorry, HOA, you're out of luck. Some cities say, sorry, I guess there's three ways. They'll say, okay, we'll take it, right? Hey, we have the money, we can do it, we'll just take it. And then some cities say, we'll take it after you fix it. And those are really kind of the three options that are baked into this, is that those are the historical positions that cities respond. In my internship at Atlanta, their position was that the HOA is having a sewer issue. And they said, if you fix the sewer line, we'll take ownership after you fix it. And that was kind of Atlanta City's approach to HOAs. And because about the end of the useful life of all utilities, this same questions comes up. And in this case, for Legacy, it's just the road that's owned, because we own all the utilities underneath. And so they still have 20 to 30 years of life on them. Sorry.
I was also wondering, is there a way that the cities normally handle private roads like this? Is there a sign that we could put up? This is, this is meant for a private road and not for pass through? Or is there anything like that that has proven to be effective besides a gate?
Not really. I mean, I think there's currently a sign on it
It
that
does-
says private road and,
yeah.
and I know that as city employees, when Dave first started, they used to use it and we got some concerns raised by the HOA. And so we keep telling employees not to, and I don't know if they do, but I'm pretty sure I've seen a Pine View truck on it, and obviously the police use it
Yeah, they do.
because they like to patrol the neighborhood. That's one of the perks. Or that's what they're supposed to do. So police are typically always going onto all the private areas. Just because that's part of their job is to keep the city safe.
One ethereal question is from an HOA standpoint from the city, if there's no interaction between them really, right? So we can't really audit them to say, are you saving enough to fix your roads, right? Because, and then it comes down to hat in hand. I know it's a bad thing to say, but that's their only other option. When they can't, financing, I mean, that's another option, but again, that puts them in financial distress. I don't know. I think parts of this we could maybe do, but at the same time, we're obligating the entire city for it, so.
And the other hard thing that the HOA deals with is they're not in this industry. I mean, I would argue that the city's in the road replacement industry, so we saw the pricing increase. I don't think there's any way the HOA would have known that prices were gonna increase 40% in 4 years or 5 years. And so, I mean, if they had, they would have to charge every single resident probably $1,000 a year to even get to what it would have cost 5 years ago to do. And so it's just hard for HOAs to really have a thumb to the wind on cost because they're not gonna bid it out every year because they're,
And John, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say 12,000 per household. That's a very high amount for senior, 55 and older homes.
Could a special district be created, John? Where it's actually put on the property it's kind of a way of financing it, council member folders. But if you created a special district, it'd be paid back over time with, a property tax or a separate line.
yeah, that's a good thought, Mayor. I hadn't thought of that. So special districts are created, through the tax code and it would add, take that number and that $12,000 and usually they last for 10 to 20 years. So it'd be $1,200 or $100 a month that those residents would pay. That's an option because then the city's not financing it, but the special revenue district is, and that typically is tied to a bond that, Zions Public Finance or someone like that puts together to fund it. So it's not the city loaning the money.
I mean, it's an alternative. I don't know if it's a good alternative. Councilmember Donpass?
Is there an option, since we know that we have work coming up on our roads, is there an option to include this section in the bid? The city not paying for it, but they're taking advantage of a larger project. So I'm wondering, since we're going to next year take care of a good swath of roads that need attention, we make an agreement with them that basically says, hey, you're paying for this, but you're going to save a substantial amount of money because you are putting this into a larger project and lowering costs that way.
John, if we just looked at, because I think you'd want to get it repaired as soon as possible before costs continue to escalate. We're talking really about the 422,000, right?
Correct.
Is where the special district would be created down that street. I don't know how many residents are on that street. But if
You
you,
have a map there. It shows the homes.
how many, I mean, if you,
do it for the whole.
It would be hard to
It's,
break it out.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to say, those would be, you'd outline the special district, which would be those folks, and if it's only 400 and you've got over 20 years, $100 a month is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to minimize the effect and come up with some type of solution. Do we have any idea? Could somebody look at that and say, okay, because I like Councilmember Dalpaz's idea, that might reduce the cost. And then that's what becomes the special district. And that might reduce the cost, you know, for the folks.
It might, I mean, cause I know, cause you said, Alan, you said that your group had a bid that was around 400,000 or 500,000.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
And so there may be our estimate might be higher because of the way we project manage, and our expectations for asphalt thickness might change what they were recommending to your group as opposed to what we would recommend.
Okay.
Possibly.
Cause if they were doing a mill and overlay, that's a different thing than ours is at a rebuild, right? Which is remove all the asphalt, check the road base. But to your point, JD, I think that there may be some cost savings if it was the same service that they got quoted, there might be some savings there.
Could we do that? Could we look into the special district situation and could we find that number and then get that information to the council? That might be another alternative. And then you know, it's kind of a hybrid. You could kind of take care of the other things you indicated.
Right.
And that way it would remain a private street. And you know, we wouldn't get into the situation with the ordinance of, because if you change the ordinance, then, you know, everybody's out. I mean, Pulver might even be out clearing the street. That would be dangerous. That'd be very dangerous. Could we do that? Would that be acceptable if we? Because I think it's really, my concern is we surely want to help, but we don't want to set a precedent of taking on private roads, where they kind of, you never know where they're gonna be, but we would like to come up with a solution where we can minimize, but help the situation, so.
We'd
Can we
be
do
happy to
that?
hear about that and we take it back to our board. Probably have to go to the membership because it's a pretty big thing, yeah.
Right,
But we would be happy to hear something, yeah.
So just to clarify, you're looking at just the 525
I believe
and
so.
those roads that are frontage on 525?
Whatever John would have to probably outline what the special district would look like, and, you know, I'm not that familiar with, I'm just familiar with the concept,
Should be the whole thing.
you know, or it might be the whole thing, I mean,
I'll use it.
I don't know.
Might as well, yeah, if we're gonna do it.
You know, and I don't know, John, if there's a way, it seems like there's a way, cause I know Intermountain issues their bonds through Utah County. If they could have ultimate responsibility, but they could get a tax exempt bond somehow. You know, because they still are responsible for the bond and the payment, just gets them a lower interest rate. So if we could do some research and see, but I just think taking ownership and the city taking on, you know, that obligation with the situation we're under now, but we want to come up with some solution to help. Just, I don't know.
And you're right, Mayor, it would be the lower interest rate because anytime a bond is tied to property tax payment, then the interest rate drops because it's the first thing that gets paid. There's, you know, if a tax sale happens, the bond still gets paid.
Yeah, they lean the,
Yeah.
if it's not paid.
So I just was curious, it's the full 525, the L shape, is that what we're talking about? Not just the part of it, but all the way coming out?
No,
to
if we're gonna do
300?
this district, I'd do everything. Because
Yeah.
we're,
Oh, you
we're gonna
wanna
have,
do all the
to.
roads
We're gonna have
for
to
the
do it
district?
eventually.
No, what we're talking about would be I guess what he's talking about is he would probably fund all of the roads, but
The one we
we
do
wouldn't
now,
be paying for.
yeah.
Right.
Well, let's look at it in two ways,
Yeah.
because it could be way expensive due to the whole thing.
Okay.
It might work.
With the 525,
But
okay.
so let's do two things.
Okay.
But it's up to you, council. I mean, it's just, you know, you're taking on the obligation, you're taking on the.
I-
Responsible.
Yeah, I agree that we don't want to start precedent because I don't want to shut down.
If we get to one of those orange beds, right?
I do have a pretty good snowball.
I hope this could be a creative solution. I guess we'll see what happens. But otherwise, I would kind of lean to, it would have to be fixed and turned over to the city if we ever consider taking it on. But the concern would be it's not to our standards. That would be the biggest concern. We're getting a street that we wouldn't have recommended.
And have to variance.
Yeah,
in the code.
so anyways, but yeah, this should
Let's look and
hopefully
see.
be a potential option.
You have another comment?
Well, I was gonna say, I do want to say something, but Ryan, I know I had his hand up.
Oh, right, I didn't see it.
That's all right. I'm hiding.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We're
Councilmember
past
Barker.
it. No, we're okay. You discussed it already.
Well, I didn't see your hand, I
Okay.
apologize.
I'm all right. If it was
Sure.
that important, I would have yelled out.
Okay,
Okay.
please do.
I was just gonna say, you know what, I sympathize with it. My mother-in-law actually lives south of 2300. So she's in Legacy South. By my calculations, we've got 8 additional HOAs in the city. Cooperstown Village. Can't remember the one by the movie theater immediately. Cold Springs. Cold Springs, Sunbrook, the Fartown Homes, a couple of those. Legacy, I feel like we need to do what you recommend is good advice, maybe with economies of scale and taking what we're gonna do, it can benefit them, but I still think that's kind of a risky precedent to set.
And another thing that what you said might help, that the city could offer a little bit of a service that wouldn't cost us anything, and we could just send a letter to the board of the HOAs every year and say, hey, here's the new cost. You know, just so that they get a feel for what's changing in the market, because those that are managed by a professional group, like I would say, the Cherry Springs Villas, are gonna likely, because they have a professional group that manages all of those projects that that company built. They're gonna have a better feel for it than like the Cold Springs Village will. Cause then the Cold Springs Village in 10 years is gonna be in the same situation,
Yeah.
I'd guess.
So,
So,
you know, from a real estate perspective, this kind of thing scares potential buyers really, really bad. You suggest the idea of a special assessment? Especially, I've never, in almost 30 years of real estate, I've never seen an assessment of 12K. And that has to be disclosed on a seller disclosure.
I
So
think that's gonna scare them away. If the real estate agent discloses that there's a 12,000 potential obligation out there,
nobody's selling it.
nobody's selling their home. So
Yeah. just
So
one
at
of those
least
weird
it's
things.
financed over time.
Right.
You know, oh, go ahead.
I was just curious, what life would the roads then have after they were rebuilt? 20 years?
Yeah, on a full rebuild, it's 20 years.
So then they would probably need to, you know, plan ahead for the next rebuild, right?
Correct.
Constant.
And can we proactively reach out to all the HOAs and say, hey, this is something you should start thinking about?
I think that's what John was.
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed that. I wasn't listening to you, obviously.
no,
But like, yeah.
I love this idea.
Thanks, guys.
JD.
But it's like, reach out to those that are 10 to 15 years out and say, hey, you guys really need to plan for this, and we'd be glad to help you with some guesstimates, you know, with some information to help you. But yeah, that's, cause I'm just thinking this is gonna continue to happen.
Where's what's the place Ryan lives?
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale. They got the same problem. They're just
Yep.
replacing all the curb right now.
Yeah, we were there a couple years ago, right? With the water.
Yeah, yeah,
Luckily, there's only about, what, 20 homes there?
And
40, I think.
So that many there?
I think Sunbrook just did a significant rehab, but I think theirs might have just been a ceiling project, not even a
Well,
chip.
can we proceed with that? Al, would that be something you'd be interested in looking at?
Yes, better than where we are.
We'll see how it turns out.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank you
time.
for coming.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for sharing information.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
When will we hear back?
Eric and I will do some research and we'll reach back out in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'll talk to, like Zion's Public Finance on special improvement district bond.
Sounds good. Thank you.
The PID, something like that. That's what they're doing. That's how they're financing all the central. Yeah. So it's becoming more and more complicated. I mean, I think it's good for assessment. Look at the real estate agents. Yeah. We might as well feel proud of them.
You think this will be disclosed then,
They have to be.
right now?
Was it
at the point where
disclosed
it's
to
at?
your mother-in-law?
Well, she's in Legacy South, without a disclosure, so it says that you have to disclose if there's any special assessment, but, That we standards are aware of.
But you have to disclose that, if those gonna be replaced, and it's.
Not necessarily. So you would have to disclose that if there's an assessment that the HOA is officially done, or if there's a special improvement district, but that would show up on your taxes.
I
So in theory,
appreciate that
it's-
answer, attorney's answer, it depends.
Yeah.
That's the engineer's answer too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay, thanks for that discussion, council. I appreciate that. And Eric, did he leave?
No, I'm right here.
Thanks for your work on that.
You're welcome.
We appreciate
Yeah,
that.
We'll continue working on that, so.
Okay, yeah, so the two assignments are, John, is to look into a district, special district, and then try to nail down the number.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
But if I heard right, I think the council was saying, taking that obligation and ownership
Sketchy.
is something you're not leaning towards. Is that what I kind of heard?
Correct.
My feeling is that-
That's correct for me.
I wish there was a way that we could help though.
Well, we're gonna try.
Yeah.
We're gonna try. So what we're here to do, help.
We're the government, we're here to help.
Well, yeah, we're the government and we're here to help you.
Safety, welfare, benefit.
Yeah. Okay, let's
Taxes.
move on to item number 5. This will be led by Mr. John Call, our city manager and attorney. Well, it kind of depends. But in any event, gotta have a little levity. Help you go. Okay, John, you want to talk to us about transportation utility fees?
Yeah, so we had kind of, Bowen put this together, so if Bowen wants to come into the table, because he can answer a lot of questions, or he can hide in the corner, whatever he wants to do. But the question was, what are the roads the city would do, whether it's a transportation utility fee or whether it's a property tax? Like, what are the things we are going to attack? And this is the list of the current high priority projects in each category. Understanding that the total shown on this, sorry, forgot to share this so that those watching online can see it. So the total showing right now is 4.9 million, but you can see that the red is a chip seal, which is the one that you see the most of, where you have to drive really slow or else the person in front of you will crack your windshield. That's the chip seal. That's what you typically see happening quite often, because it takes a couple days and there's a whole process. The cost to do these, call it 4 sections, is $2.8 million.
What's the purple indicate?
So
Sorry.
no, so the purple is the roads that were on the chip seal, but we took off and said, well, they're not as high of a priority as the red ones.
Well, aren't some of those won't have to be repaved anyways because they had the water? It's the purple ones up.
1700
Am I missing it?
1700 is already being redone, right? The bond?
1700 is in the purple. There's a water line project going on there right now.
Yeah, and then the water line up by north
That
of
was in the
the,
budget for the water line.
Yep, and then up at the additional purple at the top is where we
Yeah,
did the water line
okay.
project.
So there will be asphalt laid across the top, but typically we would like to come in after that and do a chip seal because it helps it feel more level and consistent. The blue is the seal coat, which is where they go out and they just basically lay down more tar, and it helps to put that. It's not the bitmus. What do they call that? The product. It's the
AP4.
The AP4.
Yeah.
But it helps the material stay bound together and keeps water out.
that's 3550 on the north and then 600. Is that the other one? The rebuild?
There's-
So I'm in blue right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Alberta 3550, 3300, over in the Oak Lawn area, where we did a road project in the chip seal, and now this is coming back 4 years later and resealing it so it doesn't get out of hand. And then this is 2000 by the cannery. And then the yellow is the rebuild, where the road is so far gone that we need to bring it back up. And King Hill is a fairly high traffic use right now with all the development. And then this neighborhood over here in Cameron Cove it's just rough, you know. And so it's trying to, like we talked about, keep some roads from turning into gravel. And then the purple were if we had extra money, we would do it, but you can see even these that are on here are more than we've currently got budgeted. The 4.9 million is more than the 3 that's in the budget. And so the idea would be that these roads would be on the list, and if for some reason our quantities, because it was such a big project, came in cheaper than these numbers, we could extend the quantities and do maybe some extra chip seal and start catching these other roads that are the next on the list of priority.
So with 2550 gonna get its butt whooped with all the development, is that something we need to wait on, or is it something we need to do before the big trucks go on it?
So everything right now in red, that would be the chip seal, has an RSL of 6 years
Okay.
or less currently right now. I
So
think
that would kick
2550
it,
is a 4 right now, so it's borderline beyond going to a region.
And when the development comes in, they'll
Yeah.
typically, on this road especially, they'll expand north and they'll do a saw cut and a tie-in. But most of the existing asphalt in theory would stay, and they would just connect into it with a new section.
I'm gonna squirrel for a second, sorry. Cause it's fiber stuff that they're cutting through the roads that they're doing. Drilling points and just cores. How long do they have to put it back together?
Well, so they should put it back in within a couple of days.
Okay, cause I have cores sitting on my curb and it just filled it with dirt and I'm like, it's been there for
Yeah.
2 weeks. I didn't know.
Have they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something our inspectors can go back and double check and follow up.
Yeah,
on the
cause
permit.
some of the stuff that they put in asphalt wise, that's a big annoyance for me is going up 575 east, right on 3550 as I turn ka-chunk, cause it's settled in.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Right. Yeah, so what they'll do, they'll bring the back truck up and they'll suck those out,
Yeah.
take the core, they'll put it back in, you do a utilibond, they'll basically glue it back in. And so that it adheres to the,
so if it's still sitting there in a couple weeks, just give me a call and see what you said.
basically.
Okay.
We'll do some follow-up.
Councilmember Alvin.
Alvin.
Squirrel.
Oh, okay, now I got it. Thanks.
And then Bowen, I mean, talk to him about this slide, because this is, I mean, you're the ones who put these together, but
So this one is just an overview of the previous maintenance project we did in 2024, 2025. The orange, everything in orange you see is everything we did in the chip seal, obviously, and the blue is what we did in the seal coat, the AP4. So this is just to kind of show that project overall was about 1.2 million. If the goal that was decided that the number we wanted to be at was 3 million, that's just to show this is what we did with 1.2. So if you were to times that by 3, we would be able to touch this many more roads. Ideally, hopefully, I mean, I know costs go up every year, but just to show you, if we had 3 million, we could do hopefully 3 times this.
and that rebuild is really, council, what just kills the price. Because I mean, if you're doing seal coat, like we could do miles and miles of seal coat for $5 million, and we could rebuild King Hill 2950 about twice. Or I mean, so the stuff in yellow we could rebuild about twice for $5 million, right? So it's significantly more expensive.
So, I'll go ahead, Bob.
And so if you look at this first slide, I mean, obviously, the chip seal alone, you're only touching, I think John said, if you look at it in four sections. Those are obviously the main arterial roads that are longer in length and more heavily traveled. So the first year, you know, if you got those roads back into the condition they need to be in, and then going down to the lower slide, with the 3 million, you know, you could see the difference of you could touch more road in the neighborhoods and the subdivisions than the main arterial roads.
So, Bowen, just to clarify from previous discussion, to make sure we're all on the same page here. We originally, it seems like we started out with said, well, let's try 5 million. See what that'll do. And then I think what we asked you and your team to do is to go back and say, okay, how much can you handle, oversee with the resources we have? And how much would it cost to do the roads that are what I call near the cliff, so they don't fall off the cliff, so that we're spending, you know, we're saving a dime to spend a dollar, right? And I think you guys came back and said 3 million is about the max we can handle and it would take care of the roads that are about ready to fall off the cliff. Is that correct?
Yeah, that,
Yeah, I mean, there's still, it gets, these red and yellow are the most critical roads that are about to fall off the cliff. But we don't want to paint the picture that there's not others that are
Right.
next in line.
Well, once again, you were with me, John, and I love this when Mayor Russ said this. Council, you won a popularity contest.
What?
You didn't win a knowledge contest. And so what we've said is to our experts here, tell us what needs to be done, right? And they've come back and said, this is the recommendation. Now you have the right as a council to say, no, that doesn't cut it. We need to spend more or we need to spend less. That's your job, is to allocate finances. It's their job to help us understand what they're gonna do with the money. And, you know, I believe they properly prioritize this. Now, Councilmember Pulver has a good point. So this is just the beginning. So where do we go from here? Right?
Yeah, and to me, as a person that gets slapped, I mean, understand that some people understand social media and so they read stuff, but most don't. And so the first time they're gonna see anything is when their property tax goes up or they get a fee in the mail. So that's the first time they're hearing about it. So if we have a plan or something that says, hey, we know there's a problem. We're trying to, get things going by doing this. Here's the roads that we need to hit hard because like you said, they're arterial, they're gonna fall off the cliff. We've been hit by, explain all the stuff so they understand. And then the next step is this, and so it's not just we're throwing money at something and hoping for the best. There's a plan. And so the next step would be, the next big road. So the fact that we have to rebuild this one and we're trying to save this one, or, I'm making up words, but to me that there should be something that we have that's explains things to the next step so that people aren't surprised when there's another fee increase, or we'd have to do something, or we'd have to make up the $1 million that we're using this year. Anyway. That type of thing.
Do you know how many miles this is of stuff we're touching?
I don't have the exact number when I was working on it. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look, I could look at it again and find out. 6 miles. Yeah, but-
5 or 6. And so, I mean, the other issue that I'm not gonna say staff will deal with, because we'll get complaints too, and is that you're only touching 5 miles and everyone will experience the cost increase, right? And so that's something that's gonna be
We'll
hard.
talk about it next.
Yeah,
They
and
drive on the roads.
yeah, and so,
I don't use 1700.
and the conversation with
Very nice road.
the conversation with the OHOA right before this was a good lead in, because you can see that even on a neighborhood that has the smallest frontage in the city of approved, of disconnected units,
Narrow road.
they, over the past 20 years, didn't collect enough money, because the 100,000 20 years ago would have redone their roads. But they know that they likely weren't able to have that finger to the wind in the past 20 years to know that the cost had gone up 7 times. And so it's single family residential and bad development. And I'm not saying single family is bad, or that as we approve stuff in the city, we have to be very conscientious of the check we're writing in the future. I know the mayor talks about soft costs all the time, but anything we can do to alleviate the city of future obligations, the better. Even just
Keep
snow
being
plowing.
cost effective is the key thing.
Yeah.
Because if you just wait and wait and wait, you're gonna, what was it, double or triple the cost from going from a save the road to rebuild the road.
Yeah.
So that's not stewardship, so.
I do want to point out, it's not like the city hasn't spent any money on roads.
Right.
I mean, we've spent not enough. But like I say, the last study we saw was 10 to 15 million. The next study is 100. 2 things, blading costs and wear and tear on the roads, right? But, you know, we'll put together, what's, John has started on this, on what has been spent on the roads. But you're right. Next year, if 3 million is the number to keep us from falling off the cliff, and that's as much as you can handle. And what we're talking about, I thought, is the transportation fee or property tax, right? We know that that's been recommended at $15. You could, if you want to put the plan together, you can say next year it's going to be another $15, right? To make up the million on the transportation utility fee that's going to be eaten up this year. But here, and I said this, and you heard me in the budget commit, citizen budget committee. You can explain this as much as you want. But it's an emotional decision. When somebody sees their bill go up $180 a year, they're not gonna care. You know, I mean, and I think Kevin Burns said this, you know, we're not gonna be popular people, something like that.
Correct. You're about to be very unpopular.
To which my statement was what?
What's new?
What's new? So we know at least next year, just to make up the, you know, and so, you know.
But to me, it's the plan though, Mayor. I think the biggest thing is, and I think, was it this meeting and past meeting that they're merging together, is that there's a new council coming. I mean,
Yeah,
at
they
least
can do
two,
what they want. Exactly.
maybe just one. Anyway, he's sleeping.
I think.
But at the same time, it's one of those things that, and I know I did, and Miss Christina maybe, is the fact that I think we were talking past each other in some of this stuff. I know, you know, 3 million was the number, but technically, well, what fee do we need? And are we increasing this? And then we were talking about pulling 300 back, and, you know, so to me, there was a lot of things to go into capital improvement.
Oh.
Or CIP, what are we calling it? Anyway.
Projects.
So if nothing else, it's to put something on paper so that someone goes, well, what are we doing next year? They can, anyway, instead of trying to recollect or trying to find in the minutes the right
Curious
number.
about that as well. If this is our plan this year to cover 3 million, and to collect enough, because that's what our staff can handle, is that the plan for the next year as well? Is that our staff can handle about the same amount, and if the costs did not change at all, that it would be another 3 million, which would be the exact same fee, or like the mayor said, are we gonna double the fee next year, even though our staff may not be able to handle it?
So-
You have to double it to get the 3 million.
So,
The million's being eaten up.
so right now in the budget, we're increasing revenues 1.2 million to get to 3 million.
Yes.
There's about 900,000 coming out of BNC road funds and about 900,000 coming out of that bank from the old transportation utility fee, which we will wipe out and turn into zero. So now, next year to do the same, you have to now add another 900,000 into fees or tax to do $3 million again.
And just remember this, John has pointed this out several times. We could go out and say, okay, this year, whether it's a tax or utility fee, whatever you decide, is $15, $180 a year. And next year, it's gonna be another $14 or something like that. But the fact is you put next year's council in a pretty awkward situation. Because you can't commit what they're gonna do then. I mean, they may come in and say, we're gonna just start using wagons on the road. Forget the cars.
Sounds
You know, it worked before, might work again. But you just gotta be really careful. I think, you know, there's a strategic plan, and that's at this level, right? The plan is, look, we're gonna have decent roads and we're behind and we're gonna catch up. And these are the two options we have to catch up. But, you know, that's the strategic level of plan where you're not committing the council to certain things because they may just say, see you later.
Well, but at this point, we can still have the strategic plan and still say we want to collect the $30 a month. And if it gets overturned, but we can still have the plan and tell the public the
Well,
plan, right?
I think and don't take offense to
No.
this, but I think you're dropping down below the strategic level at that point in time.
But why can't we?
You say, well, you can, but then it's, what color are you gonna paint the shed? What color are you gonna paint the shed? Just,
Purple, the purple sounds good. Oh, I thought you were asking a question. No, I understand. And that's,
you know, and that, there's some happy mediums, what I'm
Yeah.
saying, Chris. There's some happy medium. I'm not against the plan. I'm just saying, because here's the other thing, what happens when you say you're gonna do something and then you can't do it, it ruins the trust of the citizens with the council. So I'm just saying, do what you wanna do, but be very careful what you're committing to. Make sure you can do it, and then don't commit the next council. But I'm not against a strategic plan at all. In fact, John has talked about that. He got some really good information. But John, what's the purpose? What were you told the purpose of a strategic plan is at the Utah League of Cities and Towns?
To help keep the council on task. So the idea is if it's in a strategic plan, then it creates a hurdle for the council to deviate in a way that they need to think about it to deviate. Because what'll happen is a council member will call up, let's just say Peter City, and say, hey, we need to redo this road. And the department head's response to the council member is, well, it's not in the strategic plan. So if you want to get the council to add it to the strategic plan, then of course we'll do it. And that is a different conversation than saying, well, if the council says yes, we'll do it, because it creates a different mindset for the council on, they've got to amend the document, which then amends the plan.
John, to some degree, for instance, just to give an example, we had a strategy to get the parks up to speed and then put them on a rotating schedule, right? That's a strategy. Now, we've identified potential in the capital projects fund, but we didn't say, you know, we're gonna have purple.
Slides.
You know, we're not gonna have purple slides and stuff, but that was a strategy to get, and then have a rotation to keep on it. We have a strategy to make sure that we're able to finance the rotation of the police cars, right? We've had these strategies, but we haven't got into the deep details. So that's all I'm advising you to do is keep yourselves at a strategic level. It's kind of a guidepost, right? It gives you some guidance. And John is, I think, all for that. We've kind of developed these strategies. We've talked about them, but we haven't necessarily put them in writing. And there's
But I
more
think-
things like roads and,
but I think from a point of trying to explain things, and I know, you know, I think we're, anyway.
I'm just saying, I've been around for 5.5 years. And you can explain.
You're only
all you
5.5
want.
years old?
That's what my wife said, I act like I'm 5.5, so I'm trying to take it to that degree. But what happens is, these are emotional decisions. And, you know, we've tried to keep it as simple as an explanation we can, because people only understand what they want to hear. And when you start talking dollars and increasing, it's very difficult. So, you know, we'll deal with this obviously as we prepare for the truth and taxation hearing, but that would just be my recommendation to you. As you know, I'm departing, so you can do what you'd like. But John, I think the other thing you want to talk about, if the council doesn't have any other comments, is I think it was brought up by probably more than one council member. How's this gonna be done? And before we have that discussion, I think it would be good to hear from the budget committee, Citizens Budget Committee. Mr. Swanson, are you going to give the council information that was suggested by the budget committee? And you know, it might be good to, I was just thinking, you guys put a lot of work into this. Next week will be the budget discussion, so I don't know if you just want to address the situation with the transportation portion, or if you want to go for the whole thing. It's up.
We'll just do the transportation portion, because I know you guys don't want to be here any longer than you have to be on an extra Tuesday night.
He's the same.
So,
I'm on one tonight.
all right.
Sorry, Councilmember Dow, passing the fun embarrassing on there.
No, that was really good.
I think a little levity in situations you have to have a little bit.
On the continued conversation with the Citizens Budget Committee and the transportation utility fee continues to be around visibility and transparency for the residents and how to best, while you can't tie the hands of future councils, how to best make sure that your intent now is carried forward in the future. We've talked about that a little bit. With a fee, it would be a little bit more difficult to take that fee away and to use that money on something other than roads, where you have a transportation utility fee that's dedicated to roads. It's a more difficult process to change that and then use it on some other project. Where with the if it's a general property tax, you have it goes into the general fund. And like our interest, we've talked about interest income recently has kind of become a blind corner where we're sort of relying on it for ongoing operational expenses where we really shouldn't be. Because it just kind of gets into that lump. It's just easy for it to get all meshed together and for us to become blind down the road and not realize, if you remember back with the original transportation utility fee, that 3%, it didn't go away. It was changed from a transportation utility fee to a 3% increase in property tax. Well, none of that 3% was earmarked or set aside for roads and has been spent additionally on roads, but we as residents have all been paying for that. An extra 3% that was ostensibly for road repairs. And so it's that kind of visibility that we have to be careful about. Originally, the budget committee was a 3-to-1 for having it as a property tax. That has flipped now where, Sandy, you're still for a property tax, correct? So now it's flipped the other way. It's 3-to-1 for a transportation utility fee, just for primarily the ability to designate where those funds are, how much those funds are, and what they're being used for, so that they don't slip into some other use. With the conversation that happened a little bit earlier regarding the HOA deal, with the transportation utility fee, with the rest of the roads in the city, we're looking at $180 a year per resident initially. The initial ask, $15 a month, would be $180 per household. To take on that additional $1 million that needs to be done, you'd be asking on top of that another almost $130 per household to take on that additional $1 million that the HOA is asking the city to cover. So I think the committee, I can speak for the committee, but even though we haven't talked about it, that we're grateful that you're looking at options to provide assistance without the general taxpayer base taking on something that they didn't commit to take on in the very beginnings. The other piece with the transportation utility fee has been well discussed, is that the $15 initial isn't going to be enough to get us to catch up. We will never catch up at $15 a month, $180 a year. If you figure the average property tax, North Ogden property tax bill is around $280 to $300 a year. If you were to double that transportation utility fee over the course of the next 2 years, the $30 a month, you'd be essentially doubling property taxes. Not saying that it isn't necessary, but just have to be aware of what it is we're asking and what it is that that citizens are going to have to take on. The information that was in the flash vote was pretty informative as far as what people were willing to do, wanted to have happen. If you haven't, I encourage you to go through and read the individual responses, not just look at the statistical data, but look at the individual word responses. you'll see in there repeatedly that, what you'll probably come away with is, as I did, is an understanding that our residents don't have any idea how much we've been spending on roads and how much roads cost to keep them up where we want them to be. Many comments repeatedly that, well, we're already giving you enough money. Why aren't you spending the money we already give you? And that's some of the reason that the committee has asked John and others to put together over the last 10 years. What have we spent on roads? It's tens of millions of dollars that we've spent on roads over the last 10 years easily, just in BNC road funds. We're at, 9.7, between 9.7 and $10 million in the last 10 years on top, without looking at all the other monies that we've put in. So, but from a transportation utility fee, we've got to do something. Something has to be done. The feeling of the committee right now is that a fee is easier to manage from an informational standpoint, although we can't have dedicated funds and things like that with the tax. The other piece on the tax too is that everybody pays the same fee. Every home pays the same $15 per month. If you go to the property tax piece, it's going to be home value based. We've talked about the disequity that there is in the sewer system, where your home value determines what you pay into the sewer system, not how many gallons of water that you're actually. It was mentioned earlier tonight. Is there a way that we could find out how many cars are at each home and charge per car? I think that might be an onerous task, but it might not be. I don't know. It's something to think about. But with the property tax, you could have one person living in a home. You could have that individual that's on the fixed income that's in a home that's appreciated quite nicely over time, and you're going to sock it to them a lot more than $15 a month because of the value of the home, where you may have another home that doesn't. Anyway, it's an equity thing for you to decide, council. Any questions?
I just have a question on the per car use.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you have 6 cars but only 2 drivers, doesn't mean you're using the roads more, just because you have no cars, right?
Right.
John, could we tack on? Thought, I don't know if the state would let us do this, but on the registration, could we get some of that money if North Ogden residents paid more?
No, I don't know the exact rule, but they have, they can only add certain fees to the annual process.
So we could call it the John Paul fee or something like that, because the Kurt Oscarson fee, you can check to pay more money.
Well, you could, that type of thing where you can opt in. I don't know.
I'm talking about not opting in.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But not for anybody to opt in to pay for a road.
We will opt you.
But I guess,
Oh, go ahead.
no, you first.
I was gonna say, anything else, Mr. Swanson?
No.
On that?
The one thing, if we do increase the property tax to just for the roads, then we would have to change the ordinance from.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
Somebody came up with this idea, to assign all the property taxes to public safety.
Who was that, council?
I don't know, I think he got run out of town, but I'm not sure. And either way, I'm a substance over form guy. It's still money out of everybody's pocket, whatever you want to call it. One of the things of the fee, and I'm very conscientious about this, there are many in the city that can afford to pay more. And when you're straight lining that, you're taking the $15 from somebody that's on Social Security versus somebody who's the CEO of Siberian Husky Association. The thing I do like about the fee is the fact that, you can set some standards on when it could be waived for those who really can't afford to pay it. But I'm telling you, there are people in our city, you can't afford to pay it. And as we talk, we don't want to price people out of their homes, but the council then would have to set a standard. The other thing I would as I said to the budget committee, I'm fine with either way the council decides to go. But I would remind you, there is some risk, more so with the fee, than the property tax. Not saying it'll happen, but John says they're looking for somebody to lead. About $15,000 to get the study. I think John's answer was it depends. When we talked about, wonder if, we did get sued, would there be an injunction and we couldn't collect the money? But then, you know, we could go to the property tax, but we're a year down the road. So just some things for you to consider, as you make a decision. I think part of the discussion was before, and I would say no matter what you decide, total transparency has to be the name of the game. When we talked about in the truth and taxation hearing, you know, you're pretty accountable as a council. With the fee, you just hold a public hearing that nobody comes to, right? But you still have to be transparent either way. I'm just saying, we need to inform it. And like I say, in accounting, we call it substance over form. Form is, you call it whatever you want. Substance is, it's money out of everybody's pocket.
So-
Needed money, by the way, not frivolous money.
So is there a way to contact Far West and see how much it costs to do their little usage fee, which I thought was, it's not just a flat rate, it was depending on how much your business is,
So that would be part of the study, is that residential units would pay a certain fee and then different users that were commercial would pay a different fee based on how many vehicles come there, yeah.
so, because to me, that's what my wife was yelling at me about, just like, why not these, why shouldn't picking at Smith's, why shouldn't they pay more than $15? Like, I don't know, they should pay probably more because they use the crap out of the roads.
And, we have a formula because we have the developer balking right now down at the development because the transportation fee is so heavy that he doesn't know if he wants to do. I think it's a negotiating tactic a little bit, but so we already have a formula based upon the square foot of because that's what it is. It's road usage. We're saying you got to pay for the road usage. So we already have a formula. I think, for the two buildings he wants to bid down there, it's $189,000. Isn't it, John? Something like that.
For all the fees, yeah.
For the transportation fee, Councilmember Barker knows they're pretty heavy, but we already have a formula on what they pay. Based upon square footage or availability. But I think as Brian said in the budget committee, you know, we're already pretty expensive for businesses to do business, and you want to keep loading fees on them. Disincentivizes them to come, so you have to find that sweet spot, right? Because we know we need commercial development, but if we're the highest price, most difficult city, people think about that, so. So John, what do you need from the council tonight?
Well, so one thing that would be helpful next week, the plan is to try and adopt a new version of the tentative budget that we'll call the operational budget. That basically establishes this is the budget moving forward until we get to truth and taxation. And in that budget, it would sure be nice to know if the council wants to continue on the path of property tax or continue on the path or move to the path of transportation utility fee. And in part, that's critical because your truth and taxation notice will dramatically be different, whether it's a, 3 or a 4% property tax increase or a 38% property tax increase. And that resolution has to be adopted. It'll be adopted on the 24th of June. If you're moving the pathway of truth and taxation. So.
Councilmember Watson?
Yeah, I just had a few questions. Hopefully it's not being repetitive. The study would only be done if it's a fee, is that right?
Correct.
And the previous comments about the city collecting a property tax when the fee was not collected anymore, the road utility fee was not collected, and it instead went to a tax. And is that true that it was not earmarked and it was just spent on other things?
So yeah, when we took the original utility fee and turned it into a property tax, the council then subsequently passed an ordinance that said everything that's property tax goes to public safety. So it doesn't necessarily I mean, we couldn't say, well, that means the 300,000 just disappeared, but what it did is it guaranteed that all that revenue went there. And then over time, it is definitely true that that 300,000 a year was ate into from because it was basically coming out of sales tax at that point. And it wasn't guaranteed to come into roads every year.
And then I was also, last question, I lost it. I'll think of it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's really the most helpful thing is for the budget for next week, it'd be nice to know if the council's leaning to transportation utility fee or property tax.
I thought of it. Sorry to interrupt again. If we went the fee route, I'm curious, when all the residents get their bill, their utility bill, if they were to read into every line on the utility bill, they would be able to see there's a new line for the roads.
Mhm.
But if they didn't read into it, then they would just kind of be surprised if they saw their banker statement or something. They would not know otherwise. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a significant portion who don't read their utility bill. It just auto debits out of their account. And they might say, oh, I'm paying $106 a month instead of $91. I wonder what happened. And never check. But there would be an independent line that would say transportation utility fee. It would put the amount there. And then that money by state code has to go into a separate fund. It can't be commingled and it will only be spent on the certain type of transportation project.
And I believe there'd have to be a little bit of programming then, because I noticed when I was looking at this, the house that I owned when the transportation utility fee was in place has a line item for it.
Yeah.
My new home does not on the utility bill. So somebody's gonna have to.
Yeah, and I guess
Over-
the two things between utility and property tax increase is that if you go the property tax route next year, you're gonna have to do the same thing. It's gonna be another 30 to 40% increase because you have to replace the 900 that we're using up this year. In fact, it'd be maybe, and that would only be for 300. If you wanted to make it more, then it'd be more property tax increase. So that's why I'm leaning heavily on.
It's a lower percentage because the base is right.
Right, and
It's
that's,
higher, but
and again, the property tax can be used for other things if the council decides. There's nothing written in stone that says, we will use this for roads. I mean, just,
you can't commit them.
no, and even if we had said, the sidewalk thing, that was another thing that just kind of, I think Phil caught the connection magazine. I mean, and I'm not trying to point fingers because I know there was a lot of things going on, but it's just one of those things, if nobody looks, stuff can go sideways
What
and
was
you
the
don't know.
Connection magazine?
It was still in the budget.
Oh.
When we
yes.
did the yellow sheets, it was still in the budget.
But I've gotta say, in addition to John being the chairperson of the tree committee,
He was also the
he also had a
finance guy.
full-time job and was
Yeah.
trying to,
No, he did a
Jamie,
spectacular job.
So, things like that are gonna happen, but, if you wanna get people out to the, truth and taxation hearing, they'll come when they see a 38% increase.
Every
And then
year.
you could be heroes by saying, oh, I'm just kidding, we're gonna do a transportation study. Well, you sure have good attendance.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say
Councilmember Barker.
Go ahead. John's speaking first.
The new transportation utility fee process requires a public hearing, but it doesn't require the same public notice that a truth and taxation hearing does. So just by way of information.
Councilmember Barker.
I agree with what Kevin has said. If we do it this year, it's a 38% increase. We do it next year, yeah, it's gonna be an increase, but if we raise a fee, it's still a tax. It's a tax is a tax, so it just means your property taxes don't go up, but we can raise the fees with the public hearing. I mean, that's.
But it's level. I guess that's my point is that if my
still a
house is
tax.
double but somebody else's is,
Yeah.
I'm paying way more than somebody else's that might have 17 cars in their yard. I'm just saying it's not
Right.
equitable at all.
Well, my opinion, and I've stated it, we need to decide, but I'm still on property tax. But apparently this keeps getting brought up, so we need to make a decision and just stick with the decision.
And I won't be here next week to vote on it, so.
And neither will I. So somebody's gonna have to be mayor pro tem.
I think that the point that, Councilman Pulver brought up reminded me that if we go the tax route and we hold the truth in taxation and we pass it the 38% or whatever it is, this is assuming that the plan will continue and that we'll be able to have even higher next year. And what if the new council doesn't want to? What if the truth in taxation lead this otherwise? What happens if this whole plan dies after this year, right? So I guess that kind of pushes me over to the B side. I think it would be more sustainable in long, we talk about this vision, this future plan,
Strategic
strategic
plan.
plan, and it's an intent. It's not like we can choose the future, but I think that intent would
But you
last
can plan for
longer
the
if we
future.
stick with the B.
And you understand, I'm sure you do, that the next council could say, we're not
Get rid
imposing
of
a
the fee. It's
fee.
true.
Or the court could say, nice try, North Ogden. But we're not letting you, I mean, you're exactly right. The next council, each council makes those decisions. And literally they could say, hey, I've got too much pushback on this fee. Don't wanna do it. But either way, any other comments?
I was just gonna ask one quick question of John. So since the Pleasant Grove decision, what are you guys seeing among other cities in the transportation utility fee?
Almost Dave and I went to a group at the UCMA conference, the City Managers Association. We went to a room that was 2 or 3 times the size of this and just packed with city managers. It was a breakout session. And they said, who here's thinking about doing a fee? And everyone raised their hands because every city is in our same situation with roads. And currently, they believe there are only 8 and maybe up to 13 that have actually adopted. And Cameron with the league looked at the group and said, okay, as each of you are adopting your fee, please stay in touch with us because, Libertas said they are going to just look for the next person to sue. So basically you can assume that of the, 160 cities in the state, that in the next year, 80 or 90 of them will be working on creating a transportation utility fee.
I think the state has basically said they intend to amend the law to say you can't charge it to nonprofits or religious organizations.
Correct.
So either way, you're not gonna be able to collect that from churches or not-for-profits.
Yeah.
Which has been one reason people kind of lean toward fees too, because you could charge those, but the legislature is saying, and they have modified what you can do, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah, the part of the reason that we wouldn't feel comfortable doing the analysis in-house is they've added some additional parameters. That it'd be really nice to have an outside consultant who has that financial background provide hey, this is the map. One of the groups we've been talking to, they'd like to, no one has done a fee the way the new code says you have to do it. And so they'd like to be one of the first people to do it so they can market themselves to all the other cities that are looking at doing it.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so, I mean, we're not gonna make this decision until next week. How quick, if we decide to go utility fee, how quick can we get that, study done and rendered?
So to do the actual study, we could probably have it in place and hold the hearing in July and have the fee in place on August 1st. I think it's a 30 to 45 day process, because the group that at least I've talked to, that said they do it for 15, I've talked them down to 8 because they really want to do it. And they make it a priority. So
What other information do you have questions before we kind of poll? I guess we can take a vote on this, John.
yeah, just a direction, because you won't make the official vote until next week anyways.
Yeah, just so. Start with.
So
Councilmember Barton.
Well, I just wanted to say, I really wanted to listen to the Citizen Budget Committee discussion, because it sounds like that was a really good, robust discussion, and I know that there was a synopsis by Phil Swanson, which was great, but I'd really like to go back and listen to that, because I'm still, my thumb in the wind is still property taxes, just for the fact that we don't have to worry about potential litigation. It seems to be the most transparent way because people will show up and they will be able to make it known that it's, something they are for or against. So that's, I mean, I'm okay with giving a straw poll, but
John, did you show, some of the council members may have not seen what was the recommend? Phil's point's well, you gotta read the comments, but, did you put up there what the citizens responded to, property tax versus fee?
I have it up here on the screen. We didn't quite get to it yet, but so one of the things, so we'll just go through each question. The first question was, how are your roads? 70% of the people said okay or good. So, the reality is that your car doesn't translate the actual condition of the road as well as it used to. Talk about buckboards and horses. Sidewalks, same thing. A lot of people really, about 70% thought their sidewalks were good. If you were prioritizing, this they could answer up to 4 on. Repair neighborhoods and main roads were the 2 highest answers, and then resurfacing those roads. So there was quite a lot of people who felt like that's where the priority should be. This is the real question is how do you want the city to pay for street and sidewalk improvements? 29% said property tax, 19% said utility fees, 32% said the roads are good enough, don't charge me anything. And then the other 19% was an other, and I think if you read through those comments, a lot of them were on the line of the roads are good enough, or I think there was one that said it was off topic. Anyways, it
335 participants.
335, which they don't give us how statistically significant that is, but typically they've said if you've got 280 plus, then you are within a couple percentage points of the true filling of the entire population. And this is not the most we've ever had vote. I think 420 voted for one in the past. So our participation's gone down a little bit, but it's, 29% or a third of the city says put it on our taxes, 20% says put it on our utilities fees. And then 30% say don't charge me, everything's fine.
Could we put a separate line on our tax bill? Or does the county prohibit us from that?
We can. I'm not sure. I'll need to double check when the process starts. We might have missed the deadline to put what's called a special revenue fund on the tax. That shows up like when you see the library bond or some of those are special revenue funds that are taxed, and it's a separate taxing line. So then the city would actually have 2 tax rates that they work every year if we did that. You couldn't combine them. They'd have to be 2 separate, but I think you have to let them know by like April 1st if you're looking at doing that, because it's a whole different level of process for them. Yeah. But if you need the link, let me know. We'll send it to you. But the comments are really good, and especially on the last question, we always like that open-ended. You can just see, all the comments, stop homeless people from invading our community. But there's just all sorts of people expressing their feelings on roads and sidewalks and the survey. I think there were 75 comments, like extra comments here. So
what was interesting in the comments is there's a couple that addressed specifically the map that Bowen and his team put together. There was someone that said, please fix 3100 from Washington to Weber High, basically. And that's on, it's kind of funny. And then there was someone that commented, please fix the top of Washington where the new road ends and 3100 starts. And that's going to be addressed. So it was pretty interesting that a lot of the comments actually line up pretty well with what was proposed by Bowen and team.
This just confirms that the current mayor spends money like a drunken soldier. Just want to point that out.
Oh, is that a specific
He's not
one?
very conservative. Want to pass that out. So, John's looking for just kind of a feeling, and John pointed out to the budget committee that you know, if you go to truth and taxation here, you put it on taxes, you can always back it to a fee if you have citizens with better ideas. You don't have to make that final decision until the final budget's due, right, John?
Correct.
Okay, let's start with you, Councilmember Barker, if there's no further questions. Where are you leaning?
Property tax.
Knowing that this is just a straw poll, Councilmember Dowpaz, where are you?
Leaning towards property tax.
Councilmember Pulver,
Fee, and if we can make it towards usage, that would be great.
Councilmember Severie,
I hate the word transfer. I hate that word fee when we know it's a tax. So I always hate thinking that people can go, oh, surprising this. So for that reason, I would probably lean toward property tax.
and Councilmember Watson, where are you leaning?
I have gone back and forth, but tonight I'm feeling like fee, just so that it can last longer, the hope of the goal.
Well, I would interpret that, John, for budget presentation, leave it in the property tax,
Okay.
but there's hope that it could be changed to a fee. Councilmember Barker,
So just curious. Next week, can you vote on this and it's there's 4 council members who had the deciding vote? Neither,
I
of
won't
you,
be there, I'll be in Belize.
That's his point.
and I won't be there. Just to clarify.
Well, so.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Oh, well, so the nice scenario is technically we don't have to, well, it's just an operating budget. It doesn't actually have to be amended. If the budget isn't amended next week, then the current tentative budget would be the operating budget. So if it was a hung jury, so to speak, then you wouldn't have it, but, we'd stick with what we had, knowing that, but what we'd be doing is for those first 6 weeks, we'd be spending kind of just the standard stuff anyways. We wouldn't be making any big expenditures. And then in August, the council would have to vote and decide.
But here's the problem, John, the streets department needs to know something's gonna happen, right? Cause they need to start getting bids out. Because the asphalt plant shut down about October-ish.
Usually, depending on the winter,
Weather?
but yeah, November.
So
Do you-
they're gonna need to get started on getting some bids and
When are you gonna do these projects, Bowen? Would it be this fall or would it be next spring?
I don't know that we'd be able to complete all of them if we started this fall before winter. Hopefully, if not, it may have to maybe begin this fall, do what we can and begin again in the spring when.
So you might be able to do like seal coats in the fall and,
you know, you got $2 million basically, right? 'Cause of 1.7, you got 900, probably 8 or 9, so that's pretty much guaranteed money.
And
Yeah.
again, keeping in mind, we're gonna be working with contractors. The contractor that does the AP4 is different than the contractors that are gonna be chip sealing the roads, so you'll be able to do both at the same time. It's just a matter of.
Well, and what we, and this is what we've done, council, when we're in the truth and taxation process, anything that's a big project like this, we'll bring to you for official approval in a council meeting, so that we know, hey, this is moving forward, and typically you'll just approve the contract. So if we know that the council is heading towards $3 million worth of work, the revenue isn't as critical to what Bowen and Eric are putting together. So we could start putting together our RFP and get some bids back on what contractors think they could do this winter, and then the council would, or this fall, and then the council could approve the contracts. So.
It'd be nice to get the road work started so people can see this
So
action.
isn't the difference that if we go the impact fee route, it could be effective as of August 1st potentially, whereas the property tax collected will be given to us January? Or when do we actually get property
It
tax?
typically shows up in January because people are supposed to pay it in December. So it starts showing up in January, February.
So am I correct that impact fee route is utility fee route is technically getting us money quicker than going the property tax route?
No, because we would get a much smaller amount in September,
Okay.
October, November. And so by January, we'd actually end up with more money through property tax than we would, because we'd get all of it in January as opposed to spreading it out over 12 months. So it's this weird, but the nice thing is with our fund balances, we could float that money. Like we could do $1 million of projects just with the cash we have on hand while we wait for either of those funding sources to come in. But that's a really good point to make.
Don't take the heat.
Can also add that to keep in mind, a lot of cities put their projects out to bid in the spring to begin after July 1. So depending on contractors' availability and schedules, we may or may not be able to get some of that work done in the fall.
Yeah.
May have to be spring or.
And historically, we've bid it in the fall and then have the work done in the spring. And that works good for us because then they're loaded, they get our project and we get really good pricing because they know they can do it. And we give them a lot of flexibility. They can work us in anytime in that year. So.
I would suggest in answer to your question, Councilmember Barker, that we have the city recorder cast the deciding vote.
I agree with that.
Okay, I vote. I'll just throw something out here, thinking outside the box. Okay, crazy thought here, but what if is it an option if we put it on as a tax, had everyone come to the hearing and tell us about it, and then, be transparent, but then change it to a fiat? So we could intentionally do that, even though it seems
Awesome,
backward.
that's an
Yeah.
awesome idea,
Yeah, so,
You gotta be.
because I just said that.
You did?
yeah.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
but no, so there's, nothing is locked in until August. Well, in theory, the way we typically does it, do it. August 26th is when the council would make the official vote on the final budget and whether or not truth in taxation, or the taxation is a tax, or, I mean, in theory, if we're raising the revenue at all, so.
But that delays the study that we would have to do. It's
True.
Yeah.
We wouldn't get that cut rate of it.
I thought Mayor was saying that we could change our mind, but I'm saying
can.
intentionally do that as a plan.
So
Yeah, you can change your mind intentionally.
this was long before my time. Before I even cared about any of this. I heard we went to a geo bond for the swimming pool and it got voted down. And then we turned around, and just did a revenue bond and citizens are upset. So to say we're intentionally gonna go to a tax hearing and then if the citizens don't like it, turn around and hit them with a fee, I don't think that's that's not a
I
good
mean,
strategy in my
You
opinion.
can do it.
You can do it, but it
You
just
wouldn't
means
recommend it.
yeah,
You could do it.
so that's
It's the
just.
same thing. It's a fee. It's still money, the exact same amount of
But-
money coming from
But to
it.
say that we're gonna listen to our residents and not charge them a tax and then hit them with the fee. That's where the issue
I still think we need a
Yeah.
non-strategic plan as to what we're doing next year. So we can do something this year, but at least we should know what we're planning on next year. And if another 40%, I think people would lose their freaking mind. That's just,
Don't you think they're gonna lose their mind when their utility bill goes up another $20? Cause you're gonna have increases
True.
on top of it, right?
but at least they can see what the plan is as opposed to any.
Can I introduce what concept you brought up on funding this as a potential general obligation bond?
Mhm.
Council, member Pulver's, draft of a potential plan. That, I don't want that to not be addressed. That is one way to fund this. Now, whether it would pass or not, John says there's like a 30% chance it would pass. But, you'd wanna do that for, if you did 20 or 25 million, and we can only do 3 million a year or 4. You got money sitting out there for 5 or 6 years, but that is an option. To fund the roads, but then it becomes a property tax payment at that point in time. But I just wanna make sure that's addressed, that it's an option, that you're thinking through what to do next week, and the Councilmember Barker will be gone. I will be gone. So at this point in time, it might be good, John, to appoint a mayor pro tem to run the meeting.
State code says they have to vote in the meeting when nobody shows up. So it'd be good to pick someone to kick the meeting off and then call for the vote, but technically that next meeting, they have to vote in the meeting with the way state road law
Okay, well,
says.
just be prepared to get yourself a,
Show up late, is that what you're saying?
show up late if you don't wanna be. Anything else before, we have public comments? Is there anyone that'd like to make an additional public comment this evening? Anyone online? Anyone here? Brian?
Just real quick,
You might wanna have a seat this time.
yeah, And in fault to what I said earlier, the reason I'm for a fee and the folks I talked to are for a fee is because it's very clear. You put in a property tax, it goes into a general fund that can go where anybody, where you guys want to use it. Or if it's a fee and it's dedicated to roads, everybody I talked to liked that idea. So last year you guys did a 10% increase in taxes. This year you want to do a 30-40%, an extra 30-40%, you're gonna get blown up. But a fee that is, yes, it sucks, but everybody's paying it, it's going for roads. That's what everybody's saying.
And John, could you get the information back to Brian's comment on if we could put that as a separate line item?
Thanks.
As. There, anything else? Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone online? Not seeing anyone's hand raised. All right, we'll move on to item 7. Owen, you got anything else you want to add? Eric? Nope. Ryan?
No, sir.
Scott? Mr. Call? Council, anything else you'd like to add? And I have nothing to add. So at this point in time, we'd be looking for a motion